And then obviously the theme we did for Brian Myers, right? You're asked by Brian to create a bomb theme. He left WWE. He's now going into TNA. We start talking and say, hey, what can we do together? And I remember that moment too. You were just like, hey, here are some of the references. Here's what he's saying. So again, eternally grateful for you guys being like, hey, let's get this schmuck involved too.
No,
And
man, you
being
were the right
able
guy for
to,
the job. Like, if anything, like, it wasn't ever really hard working with people that weren't fans before because I'm pretty good at selling, why it works and makes it important. But it's certainly going to be easier working with someone like you that's as big a fan lifelong as I was. So I knew you would understand it even more than anybody else could. So and it was also kind of right place, right time. Like, it couldn't have. We had just started talking and like right before that point. So for
yeah,
that to kind of land in our lap, right around the same time you and I had just met. I mean, call it kismet or call it whatever you want to call it, but it definitely worked out that way, and that was a cool thing. He had, I mean, Brian Myers had even more references than Will Ospreay. Like, Will Ospreay's a pretty straightforward guy, and so what he kind of sent as a general like, he didn't have any catchphrases he wanted to include. I think Will himself was still finding himself. I think that kind of
right.
made that, Brian Myers had a whole like WWE thing that he had done, so he was trying to kind of reinvent himself leaving WWE and prove that there was a reason that he still mattered being let go from WWE and things like that. I think Will was still so early into his career that he kind of just gave me his music interests, whereas Brian Myers had a bit more about him as a person and a character, which is good too. I want as much as I can possibly get. There's not. I can take whatever you have and I can make it all work, because for me, being a fan, I already am watching anyway. But I still want every bit of details that you can get, especially if you're trying to kind of switch this up. If your character's, needing a new theme and they're going darker, I don't want to be writing a babyface theme if you're
Right.
going heel, And so I don't want to look like an idiot. It really is important to me to kind of fixate it and make it as if it was written by them. Like, I want to get as close as I can to
Yeah.
their headspace as I possibly can, like a freaking psychological study,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
You almost want to make it feel like, because there are plenty of themes over the years where people go, oh, I thought that guy wrote it, right? We always think of like the where with the big show. And obviously it's because of like the deep voice and things like that. But, in your vision, you're kind of like, hey, if they were the ones to sing this, if they had the voice that you did, this is what they would say. And I mean, if you listen to the lyrics in The Ride, it's everything from pre, during, and post WWE where he's going. And
yeah.
I would argue that with that theme, it's not a babyface theme. It's not a heel theme. It's kind of a theme just about Brian Myers. And I think those are some of the best themes. When you kind of came to me and you were just like, hey, what ideas do you have for it? I remember the first theme I had, I always had the riff. I don't know why, but the riff, I was like, okay, cool. This is where we're going with it. I think it was in a higher key. I think I had to change guitars, drop tune it to, I think a C, which worked for you, which was
Yeah.
awesome. But once it went into that key, I was like, yeah, this is perfect. And I remember you sent Brian like the first guitar riff that I had written that was in the higher key,
Hmm.
and it was literally just like a guitar and a drum part. And I was like, all
Yeah.
right, cool. Like, let's hope he likes this, because I'm very used to just like sending bare basics to people so they get an idea.
Yeah.
But then I also have to remember, and something I actually learned with that was you got to flesh it out a little bit more to send it to somebody, because we're the musicians. We can hear, okay, someone's got a guitar riff. We can hear the drums. We can hear the bass. We can hear the production and a bit of the direction. When you send it to somebody who's maybe not so musically inclined, they're like, oh, yeah, well, it needs to sound bigger. And you're like, I promise, this is just kind of the reference for you. But
Like, I don't want to send them the whole thing. It's so many awkward kind of potholes that you can fall into. I don't want
yeah,
it to fall into a thing where I send them the final product without having ever sent them anything else at all to kind
right.
of give them an idea of what this is going to sound like so they can give their own feedback. I don't want them to send the final thing and now they're stuck in the awkward spot of just this doesn't work for them at all, and now
Right.
we have to go back from scratch, and obviously that's a pain in the ass for any musician to work with. So I
Yeah.
do want to give them a little bit of the direction of where it's going, kind of like you mentioned, but I want to make sure that the song is pretty much ready to go
Yeah.
and show them the final soon after that, so that way it's not like they're stewing for 5 weeks with this one little riff,
Right.
that we were there to give them a picture. Like, just this is going to be recorded this weekend. Just wanted to give you this general idea, so that way you know the general direction of where this is going. And if you're into that general direction, then we'll show you the rest in a few days, and then you can kind of give your opinion.
Exactly, yeah. And I remember that you had texted him when the song was completed, and you were just like, "Oh, check this text out." And it was basically whatever it said, right? It was just like, "Oh, this is it. I'm jamming it in my car, and like, this is it." Like, he was so excited about it, and he's going to be another guest depending on when I release these. He was a guest on the show too, and he echoed that same thing too. He's like, "Dude, I was in the car and I heard it, and I was like, holy, this is it."
I think, yeah, to be perfectly honest, I anticipated a lot more issues with just people's opinions, because the wrestling fans are fans of music just the same in their own way. And
Yeah.
I anticipated them to kind of be pickier, but maybe that was just my brain, because I've written for other bands too.
Right.
Just when you're co-writing in the studio and things like that, and musicians are going to be way pickier.
Yeah.
But I felt like when doing it for wrestlers, it was almost like writing for fans. They're going to be a bit more picky because it's something that's related to their character that they have to use and walk out to every night. But they were listening to it with those fan ears rather than listening to what I spoke of earlier, like those musician ears.
Yeah.
There was less of that nitpickiness about stuff. All that mattered to them was that the broader picture was being painted the way they were hoping to hear it. So it's been easier writing it for wrestlers than it's ever been, co-writing it for any other musician or band in the studio.